Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome to Star Citizen Alpha version 3. Now this is the big update that everyone's been waiting for. It's the one that comes with persistence, missions, planetary landing and all manner of other goodies. Currently there are 3 landable moons. These are Yela, Daymar and Selin. There's also a rather large asteroid called Delamar that's landable. So I'm here on Daymar, and like all the others it's pretty much a barren planet. But this one does have an atmosphere, and funnily enough it does provide for an excellent environment, and yes, it is very atmospheric. Now on all the moons there's a number of locations dotted around them that you can visit, like this shelter here. Now the great thing about Star Citizen, and something that CIG have been talking about for a very long time, is the lack of loading screens. You can go all the way from your bedroom, all the way up into space, land on another planet here and enter another building, all completely seamlessly. And when it works, it really is a pleasure. Of course, this is alpha at the moment, so there's a number of problems, including some significantly low frame rates and a good number of crashes and other glitches. But that's to be largely expected, as this version of the game is still on the test server. Now one thing I did enjoy is getting out the ships, going into a building and looking out the windows to check out the ship landed outside. Talking of ships, anyone playing on the test server will have access to all the ships that are currently implemented within the game. There's still plenty that are not implemented just yet, but that's because they're not yet playable. Of course, once the game goes to the live servers, then you will only have access to the servers, or the ships rather, that you have purchased. There's something extremely immersive about walking around on a planetary surface and climbing into the cockpit of your ship and powering up and flying off. Interaction with your ship is done through the F key, and this will allow you to look around and interact with the ship's control panels. Before you fly off the first time, you'll need to switch power on, as well as switching the engines on. Getting up in the air, you can double tap N, and this will retract your landing gear, enabling you to fly around to your heart's content. Now, I've not always been a big fan of the flight mechanics with Star Citizen, but I've got to admit that with version 3 they have taken some tremendous leaps forward, and all the ships really do feel as though they have some momentum to them and some weight. I still have some reluctance about the FPS style ship controls, but I think given time they will grow on me, especially if they keep making improvements along the lines that they've been making recently. Now there's still not a lot to do on these planetary surfaces, but as you can see they do look very nice indeed. And as you accept various missions, you will find you do come down to different places and different locations on planets to fulfill those missions. However, the game still does have quite a few glitches like I mentioned, and for whatever reason my engines went off here, and I crashed into the surface, going into a crazy spin which lasted around 30 to 60 seconds before finally settling down on the roof of the ship. Now the ship wasn't completely damaged, but I couldn't get it back upright again, so I simply left the ship, and it was quite funny watching yourself essentially climbing up to the sky to leave the ship. Now at this point I was around about 7,000 meters away from the base you saw me at a few moments ago, and had I been so inclined I could have walked all the way back to that base. It would have taken a lot of time, but it's a nice option to have. And again, it really does add to the sense that you're in a living, breathing world here. Now, as far as I know, there's no way to actually summon another ship. However, you could always have a friend flying over, pick you up, and fly you back to a base or a station. If Star Citizen's famous for anything, it's its sheer volume of ships, all of which are available through cash purchases, that's real world money cash purchases, on the CIG store. Now the idea is that eventually all these ships will be earnable directly in the game with in-game money and in-game progress, but that's not currently how it stands at the moment. There's also a lot of ships that are still not implemented in the game. However, the ones that are here are very, very impressive. It's hard to deny that fact. And as for the land claims, the land purchase for real world money, or the insurance for the protection for the land, for whatever it is anyway, that's a subject we'll be talking about at another time. The Mobi Class is here on a wristwatch-like augmented reality system. It displays a hologram that you can basically interact with, and it allows you to accept missions, to plot your courses, to communicate with other players, and pretty much every other single function accessible through the game. Here you can see the contract manager. That was my accepted missions. Before that there was a big list of missions that were available for me, and you can actually accept all of these. These change during the course of your session. They basically seem to be procedurally generated, although they're also a mixture of handcraft elements going on here. This is the holographic map of the Staunton star system, of which currently only the planetary system of Crusader is available. That's the planet Crusader and its few moons. Now you need to use the map to plot your destinations, and you can also use it to locate missions and plot your way to them. Despite the map system actually being very easy to use, I actually spent a long time trying to get into Quantum Drive for the very first time, and that ultimately was down to a number of bugs. No matter how many times I plotted a course, no matter where that location was, the Quantum Drive just simply would not engage. However, since that first occasion I've not had the same problem, and now the Quantum Drive seems to activate flawlessly almost every time. The Quantum Drive tunnel here is very visually impressive, and it's nice leaving one location and arriving seamlessly at another one here. And of course we can fly straight down to the surface of this moon without any problems at all. I call this a moon, but this is actually the asteroid Delamar. On the other side of the asteroid is a huge mining facility which we can land at and actually walk through, called Levski. We'll get a brief glimpse of that at the end of the video, and we'll take a much closer look at Levski in my next star system video. Now the mission here was to retrieve a black box from a crash site. And yes, this turns out to be an actual real crash site and an actual real black box that you physically have to go out and pick up. You can see in front of me is another ship. It looks to be a Hornet, and that means there's probably another player here somewhere. Now do keep in mind that players can attack each other, so just simply landing here you could be shot at by the other ship, or if the other player's got a gun then he could shoot you when you leave your ship. Fortunately for me, I didn't have any problems or any such encounters. Now I want to say right here that getting to this location did take a lot of attempts. In fact, it took quite a few hours before I had a mission where I could successfully complete it pretty much from the start right through to the end, although there is a bit of a problem at the end of this mission, as you'll see towards the end of the video. And the reason for all the problems was simply technological ones, graphical glitches, frame rate issues, and a number of crashes that went either back to the desktop or back to the main menu. Unfortunately, although there is some persistence in Star Citizen right now, there isn't pure 100% persistence, so that means whenever you get a disconnect or a crash and you load the game back up again, you'll find yourself back in your quarters on the main station. And you'll also have lost any progress or any missions that you have, and you'll have to go and accept a new mission. But do keep in mind that this is still very early days on the test server, and as far as I'm aware, CIG have still only invited 2 waves of players. There's going to be 5 waves in total, so it's likely that the update is going to stay on the test servers for quite a while yet. So outside my ship you can hear that sound is a little bit muffled. And whilst sound does travel in this game, even in space, when you're in your EVA suit, they do seem to try and imply basically that you're hearing vibrations through your suit. It does add to the atmosphere. The crash site, as you can see, is completely gorgeous. This is a freelancer crash site, and it's by no means the only type of crash site you'll see. Although that said, I haven't as yet had the opportunity to see any of the other crash sites myself, but if they're anything like this one, then they're going to be very, very impressive indeed. So then I'm exploring the crash site here, looking for the somewhat elusive black box, but lo and behold, it's out here with a beacon flashing on it, not that hard to miss. In a very nice touch, when you pick up the black box, it doesn't magically disappear into an inventory. You actually physically pick it up and you have to carry it back to your ship and place it on board. So the idea here is very much that you're going to have to look after anything that you pick up and collect. It adds immeasurably to the sense of actually physically being in this universe. And if this mechanic is carried far enough, then it's going to literally mean that CIG can offer very different types of missions to what you'd get in other games. There is of course the argument that this makes things very long-winded. After all, you've physically got to go through the whole process and do everything, and this is no more apparent than when you die or when you suffer a disconnect or crash, only to find yourself waking back up in the station again. Each time you've got to walk through the station's corridors, summon your ship, walk through the airlock, board your ship, power up your ship, get the engines on, and then finally get up into space. I don't really know if that type of game mechanic is eventually going to get a bit tiring or a bit repetitive. Of course, it is a problem when you're suffering from disconnects and other crashes, but in a stable form of this game, you should find yourself waking up back in your apartment far less often. It really ultimately does leave you with the sensation that you're physically present within this game world, and that, personally, is a fact I feel needs to be praised. So then, with the black box on board my ship, I flew back up into orbit, and to have to fly around to the opposite side of the asteroid so I could approach Levski here, the mining base that we were talking about. And as you can see, there's a big carved out hole here. I guess that's the area where they must be mining. Now, as you can see, the frame rates got really choppy here. They're fairly inconsistent. Sometimes you can fly here and find the frame rates to be pretty stable. Other times they can be pretty low. At any rate, this was the point where I made a pretty serious mistake. I couldn't figure out how to land, and that's simply through a lack of reading the instructions available on the patch notes. So I looked at one of these landing bays and thought, why not just try and land into one of those? And these are, by the way, the places that you are meant to land. What I didn't do is request landing permission, and you can do that through accessing your Mobi Class and the relevant panel there. Nonetheless, the ability to fly up to this base and descend into one of the landing bays does absolute wonders for the sense of scale. Now, of course, there's going to be many people commenting on the fact that the asteroids here and the moons are not particularly large, especially when compared to other games out there. And that is a comment that I can relate to. I also have a little bit of a problem with the way the mountains look when up in space, as well as the formation of the geology of some of the planets. But it's still all very much a work in progress, and it's something that over time will probably change. So then, as you probably saw there, trying to land without landing permission actually will get you a criminal infraction and a fine. So what I did instead was land just outside the base here, and yep, that caused a few problems because for whatever reason it caused me to foul the mission. But nonetheless, I got out my ship and had a bit of a look around the exterior of the base here, and it does look very, very impressive. You can see I'm moving slow here. That was another glitch. For some reason my guy would move at no more than a snail's pace. But it did give me the opportunity to have a bit of a look at Levski here, the mining base. It's something I'm going to come back and have a closer look at in the next Star Citizen video. You can get right inside here. There's a bunch of NPCs walking around, and you can accept missions and other things here. Now, unfortunately, in this video I run out of time to show anything else. There are plenty of other things to have a look at though, so I'll be back for those in another video. But for now, that brings me to the end of this one. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.